Hello and welcome. My name is Joy Soto and I will be your host for our panel today. The two films that we will be discussing are La Receta de Alma and La Casa de Mama Icha. La Receta de Alma, or Alma's Recipe, follows the journey of Alma Romero, a health promoter at Puentes de Salud, as she helps the Latinx community during the COVID-19 pandemic and also faces her own personal challenges. La Casa de Mama Icha, or the House of Mama Icha, is an observational documentary that portrays the heroic return of 93-year-old Maria Donisia Navarro to Colombia. It is a film that explores the legacies of migration and immerses us in the heartbreaking reality of power struggles in families when seniors become dependent on the care of the others. I would like to introduce each of the filmmakers. So we have Gabriela and Melissa from La Receta de Alma. If you would like to introduce yourselves and say a few words about your background.
Sure. Hola, hi everyone. Hola todos. Thank you for having us. My name is Gabriela Watson-Burkett. I'm originally from Brazil. I'm a documentary filmmaker and journalist. And the focus of my independent work is on Afro-Brazilian culture and Latinx identity. I pass the ball to Melissa, the co-producer of the film.
Welcome.
Gracias. I'm Melissa Beatriz. I'm a documentary filmmaker, cultural producer, journalist, and researcher based in Philly. So looking forward to being here.
Thank you. Next up, we have Brenda and Oscar from La Casa de Mama Icha.
I am Oscar Molina. We are right now in Medellin, Colombia. We are very happy to be here. I have a background in filmmaking, arts, and journalism. In the latest years, I have been working in the crossing issues of migration, economy, and home. And that's why we are here with La Casa de Mama Icha.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brenda Isabel Steinecke Soto. I am the producer of La Casa de Mama Icha, and I am also an artist, a producer in this case, and I have also a background in philosophy.
Great, thank you and welcome. Thank you for taking the time to discuss further your films. So let's get into it. So I wanted to know, what are your inspiration for your film? Gabriela and Melissa, if you want to go first.
Sure. Well, we were motivated to do, the short is part of a documentary series of 3 shorts. And we were focusing on the Philadelphia community and looking at different problems that this community was facing, especially last year, as we were dealing with COVID, especially. And also we were looking at the information the community was lacking from like journalism outlets. So that was our focus. And when we heard about the story that we portray in the film of the couple, specifically of the main character, and how much she was doing to help the community, and how personal misinformation has been a problem to her and her community, it was like a major click for us to focus on that story. I don't know if Melissa wants to add something.
Yeah, I think you said it all. I just think we're at a pivotal moment also where communities want to see themselves accurately reflected in the media. So we wanted to make sure to capture that and hear what their vision is of what it looks like if journalism and media making was equitable, and really telling their stories in an authentic, accurate way. Yeah. So that was part of what we wanted to do.
Oscar and Brenda, what was the inspiration behind your film?
I'm sorry.
Okay, I have chickens. My neighbor has chickens too.
I have been interested in the issue of what home becomes through the experience of migration. And have been researching for a long-term stories of migrants who build their dream house in their native country with the resources they get in their destination countries. So that was the starting point of this story. So sorry about this.
For Melissa and Gabriela, for your film, I feel like even though it was, I'm not sure if you thought about filming Alma's, story and telling her story before COVID, and it kind of just transpired. But even though that was a big theme within, I feel like there were several themes that short just hit upon.
Yeah, absolutely. We initially we were just moved by her work as a promoter. I'm sorry, I'm lacking my words today. I'm gonna start over. Initially, we were very interested in her work as a healthcare promoter, just in general, because we thought it was so interesting that Puentes de Salud find a way to communicate with the community through a person that embodies that care. She's not, let's say, specialist in the sense that she went to school especially for that, but she learned a lot. And she has this leadership, it's so natural for her. So all that was something that we found just very compelling, just how, it should be, the system should be amplified. We should be able to communicate with the community in different capacities and using natural leaders. So initially that was the major point. And as we continue with the research, we saw so many other things that she was bringing to place, right? Just like the difference of immigration, like she's an immigrant, but her daughters, I think there's a little soundbite, a little talk of her daughter, she speaks in English, but they all coexist in that little South Philly world. And then also not just the health issue, but specifically COVID and how COVID was so impactful in the South Philly community, not just, not only in Philadelphia in general. But Melissa can talk more about other topics that she considers important.
Yeah, and we were commissioned to do this documentary, and it was actually once COVID had already started. So that was naturally part of the story. What else? I feel like we talked a little bit about it, but misinformation was a big theme and combating misinformation. Yeah, I think that's the big one I can think of right now. Maybe more will come later.
Yeah, definitely. For Oscar and Brenda, for your film, it felt very personal. I don't know if that was an initial, just like filming in the home, I guess also being a Latina and the family allowing that. It felt very personal, both in Philly and then back in Colombia. Was that something that you wanted to portray and show, the audience?
Yes, I mean, when I started to shoot the film, I have the question, how is it possible to portray the feeling and the idea of home? So the decision was to start becoming part of the place and the people and the family where I was, and developing a relationship as a kind of host and guest. Yes, because it's like who I am in this story. So it's like I am a person who has been invited to be part of this story with the camera. So that was kind of the relationship that it was developed since the beginning. And the outlet of what happened is this intimacy that is present in the film.
Great. For Gabriela and Melissa, what were some challenges you faced during the film?
Okay, I can go. The timeline. It was a pretty tight timeline.
Okay.
COVID, the pandemic, just making sure there were, safety measures in place, figuring out how, I guess, how the characters felt comfortable with filming and locations. Those are some of the big challenges. Yeah. Gabriela, anything else?
Yeah, just narrowing down, I think, the focus, because like you said, there were so many interesting things when we look at Alma and Alma's life. Her family is amazing. She has so many different community roles. Like she's a mother, she's a wife, they have different businesses in a community. She's a health leader, healthcare leader. So we were like, oh my gosh, we could go tell her story from so many different ways.
Right.
So, but then we saw that, beating down on that misinformation on COVID was something that was more timely and could give a nice, a nice focus for the story. So sometimes it's just hard to find, a way to narrow down.
Same question for Oscar and Brenda. What were some challenges you faced?
Well, the main challenge, there were many challenges. This film was made in around 7 to 8 years.
Oh, wow.
The shooting time was altogether 2.5 years. And from the beginning on, financiation was a huge issue, because Oscar was already working in the research of these stories he was talking about people building their home, their dream house in the place of origin while they are somewhere else, and how this issue is showing us something really crazy about our current world, about globalization and non-flow of social rights and belongingness, the search and the building of home and so on. And anyhow, from the beginning on, Oscar was looking for partners in terms to go further with this project. And many people, also producers and companies and so, were saying, oh, great project, this is really important, you have to do it, but everything is very uncertain, so we cannot invest in it. So we had a main person participating in the film, Mama Icha, who was already 93. So the question was, how long is she going to be there with us? And also, it's a story of a person, just a normal person. It's not a figure. She's not famous. There were a lot of questioning, or more than questioning, just saying, okay, go ahead, good luck. So financing, it's been a huge problem from the beginning to the end, but we did it. So we are very proud of ourselves.
Great. And for both the films, was each of your films meant in mind beforehand, or maybe as you were going, did it change? Was there a specific audience that you were making the film for? Oscar and Brenda, if you want to go with that question.
I mean, since the beginning of conceptualizing this project, one of the main goals is how we can create conversations about the reasons that are behind all these stories. They have to be about economic inequality, the border, there is border restrictions for many people coming from different countries to move freely. So that was one of the main ideas, how we can create conversations with audiences and not just about a particular nationality or territory, because this situation happens all over the world. And that was, for me, coming from Colombia and being in Colombia, it's an important conversation to have, because we are, the kind of citizenship that we have in the world depends on the stereotypes of that economy and politics have created over people coming from particular countries.
Yes, and also Also, in the developing of the story, as I said before, Mama Icha was shot along 2.5 years, and it started with this heroic journey of Mama Icha going back home. And then when she arrives there, she has to face a reality she was not really expecting. And then at the end, the film has a lot to do with the relationship between migration and older age, and also elder care, because many people who want to return, they don't do it because they have no social security in their home countries. So this was something that we didn't expect at the beginning, because we were thinking of this home building, returning, reverse migration, and the story of Mama Icha. And I think this is something that relates our film to yours, Gabriela and Melissa, and I think I am very, very glad to meet you. That at the end, the story of Mama Icha pointed out this issue of migration and elder care, which we didn't thought about at the beginning.
That's interesting. For Melissa and Gabriela, same question. Did you make the film in mind for a specific audience?
Yeah, no, it's great to meet you guys the same way. Es un gusto conocerlos. Yes, I think at the heart of, the production, we wanted to tell the story of this very inspiring family, Latina family, to our Latino community, especially in Philly, because it's so local. It feels like a lot of people can relate, but I'm sure a lot of Latinos outside can relate as well. But we also kept in mind that a lot of, because the docuseries is not all focused on Latino social characters. So we kept in mind that we had a general audience. People that were not Latino could also watch. So we, made sure we had subtitles, and we made sure we explain a little bit, and that, like Puebladelphia, I'm giving a little spoiler, sometimes people say, oh, we don't need to explain what Puebladelphia is. People know, because it's a fusion between people who come from Puebla and Philadelphia. I said, this is clear for the Latino community,
right?
But there's a lot of people outside that don't understand. So we made sure to explain it.
Or even that community in general, because I'm from Philadelphia, and I've seen the change of that area, but I never knew there was an official, until I saw the film, and I officially know the title. So
nice, yeah. So I insisted. I said to the editor, we had to have that. It needs to explain, and be paid back. People were like, oh, I never heard of it. And so, just understanding some things are very clear for some demographics. It's totally, not out of the sight from other people. So,
yeah, and great to meet you, Oscar and Brenda. I actually saw your film a few years ago at the Fleischer. Yeah. So it was beautiful. I'm glad these films are together, because also Mama Icha was in South Philly, right? And Alma's family and Puebladelphia is in South Philly. So I feel like there's some overlap. There's a big Latino population there.
Definitely.
So that's exciting. Another audience we had in mind was journalists and media makers. So they could really, if they watch it, they could start to be critical, if they're not already, of kind of how they're telling stories, especially about underrepresented, marginalized communities. So yeah, that was one of our other audiences.
I think for my next question, so how did you come up, after, specifically with Oscar and Brenda, such a long time, how did you decide to come up, with the title and kind of like main theme of this? Because again, that as well kind of touches upon several different topics. You touched upon this before, even though, it was focused on one particular family from Colombian background. I think majority of Latinos coming up, they usually have their, you know, elderly grandparents or even parents, you know, as we're getting older, you know, it just, you know, we're going to take care of them, right? We're not going to put them in a home or whatever the case may be. But I think also, so my family's Puerto Rican. And so my grandfather, you know, my mom took care of him. He wanted to go back, but, you know, that plan of like, who's going to take care of you? And that's essentially is what happened. I think that's what kind of Mama Icha discovered also once she went back, even though she was obviously happy to see her family. But what, you know, how would you narrow down specifically the title and like the main theme for that film?
Well, in the case of Mama Icha, it is in La Casa de Mama Icha. We always say Mama Icha. It is kind of a specific because Oscar was actually working in another feature film, which was made out of 4 parts. It was about 4 stories of migrants dreaming and building their dream house in the place of origin. And each story was in one a station or one phase. Like the first person was just dreaming of, and the second one was already building the house, and the third one already built the house but did not return. And the fourth story was about someone who didn't want to postpone anymore the return. So Oscar was looking for this story, and he met Michelangelo Ortiz. So he already knew Michelangelo Ortiz, who is an artist from Philadelphia, a muralist, an activist. And she's the granddaughter to Mama Icha. Right. And Oscar said to her, hey, I'm looking for this story, and so and so. And Michelle meant, hey, this is my grandmother's story.
Wow.
So in this case, the whole project, the trilogy, is called Mi Casa, My Home. And La Casa de Mama Icha was born out of the character, of course, and of this great encounter with Mama Icha and Michelangelo and Epifania. I mean, just a great family. And the second feature is called La Casa de los Ausentes, absentees house. So it keeps this issue around the house in an expanded sense.
And I want to add that in the story of Mama Icha, there is an overlap of different layers and meaning of home, which is amazing. I mean, home in these stories about the construction, the building, but it's also the family relationship. It's about body, her desire, where I want to die and where the remains of my body should stay. It's about the belongingness, where I feel home, where is my home. And it's about the possibility to have kind of well-being in the relationship with the context. I mean, his home is also the possibility to accomplish your dreams, and how the territories where you are allow you to do that. So in that particular story, the home has this multi-layer meaning. And also the kind of the nickname of Maria Donisia, which is Mama Icha, has this title of Mama, yes. So I think we like it, the combination of Casa and Mama, yes. So that was kind of a decision that we made, depending on the words.
That's so interesting. I think people don't know how much work goes into, you know, a simple title, but, you know, it has to encompass all the entire, you know, what the film is about. Melissa and Gabriela, how did you, specifically with a short, you know, I'm sure the film in itself was hard to kind of like pack down into a short amount of time. How did you decide to come up with that title?
Yeah, it was just looking at her and at her daily routine, Alma's daily routine, and she's always taking care of people, and she loves to cook. And she was sharing with us that her dream was to have a YouTube channel, and and then she was cooking for the family. So much of this wonderful woman life, it revolves around food, and she has so many advice for people that I thought La Receta de Alma could translate that, because it's not only about the recipe for food, but the recipe for so many things that she provides people.
Mm. Do you want anything, Melissa? Okay. So I think to finish up, the panel, what are some lessons that you learned during your process that you can also tell? Because I can imagine that they're also, just starting, budding, filmmakers. Maybe they're in the middle of kind of like their first film. What are some lessons you learned in general, but then also, specifically from your film that you would like to speak about? I don't know if Melissa and Gabriela, you want to go first?
Yes, something that we learned throughout the process.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just, for me, it was fascinating to really dive deep into the South Philly community. I actually lived in South Philly for a year, but it wasn't in Puebla, Delphia. It was a little further, but I found fascinating to just, delve into that community and spend hours and see how it has changed and the dynamics. I think all the documentaries were just fascinated by looking at life, like how does the people revolve, or how many stores, and how the Latinos, the quinceañera stores, the panaderias, and the guy playing R&B on the streets. So for me, it was just wonderful to be able to stay there that long, because otherwise you don't really feel the soul of the city, right? In Philadelphia, it's not that small, right? It's not as big as a big metropolitan city, but it's not as small. So I'm glad to have the opportunity to dive deep into that community, and also for the other part of it, it was just I was just shocked by how the fake news are being, seeing firsthand the effect of fake news in the community.
Wow.
Because one thing is for you to read that story, right, or to report on that story as a journalist, but the other thing is to meet people who actually, say that they don't go exactly, they don't believe in the COVID, or they don't go to the hospitals because of immigration problems, or so having that experience, through Alma, it was just like, this is so unfortunate, because I'm a journalist, so I'm all the time surrounded by news and talking about it. So it's a different kind of a process. We are able to talk about what is untrue, but for some people, news from WhatsApp, it's all they get because they are busy making ends meet. So when you see that firsthand, it's just very shocking, and it gets you to think more about the effects of news and misinformation. Melissa?
Thank you. Melissa, what are some lessons you've learned?
Lessons. Lessons I would share with other filmmakers. Just have a solid team. I think that really helped us. Having a team where everyone could kind of focus on one part, and really use the scripts to your advantage. That also really helped us. Sorry, I'm echoing. Whenever we had questions or weren't sure where to go, the scripts really helped guide us and focus us back more. Like, okay, what is the story we want to tell? How do these sound bites and visuals work well together? So, yeah.
Great, thank you. Oscar and Brenda, if you each want to talk about some lessons you've learned.
I mean, making this film has been a kind of PhD, because it has been a challenge in many ways. In terms of production, one of the big lessons that we had is like, if you want to make a film, don't wait the permissions to others to do it. In terms of if you have grants, fundings, partners, the ideal team, the ideal production team, the ideal shooting team, like you wait to have everything ideal for the film, it's going to be so difficult to start. So one decision that we made, it was like, if I don't have the resources, external resources, funding, other partners, I'm going to start, because this is a story that is urgent to tell. And if I don't start right now, this story is not going to happen in terms of film. And that was one lesson. I mean, and that's another, I mean, and also it's understanding how each film has its particularity in terms of how you want to portray, how you want to relate with the people, with the stories. Or depending on that, you make decisions in terms of how big your crew is going to be, what kind of equipment. So it's about not having like a standard idea of crew, camera, for shooting all films. Like, I think each film requires a specific decision in those terms. And also that decision that becomes in the film an aesthetic decision, yes? So, and a formal decision. In this case, I shoot most of the film by myself. And it was a challenge, especially at the beginning, how to deal with equipment, with the relationship, with the questions, who I am here, what is going on here. But at the end, it develops in terms of the form and the feeling of the film, this kind of intimacy, because it becomes about my relationship with the story, with the people. So I just to think about each film requires a different thinking in terms of what kind of equipment, what kind of crew do you need.
And I also just want to, oh no,
I was
sorry.
gonna say, even your decision, I think what was a little bit different. I wasn't sure who it was, but even your interaction when you were interacting and asking questions as you were filming, and it's a little bit different. That was a decision that you decided to keep, to continue.
Yes, yeah, because it's the story of Mama Icha, but it's also my quest of understanding what is happening in this story, this particular family that has been affected by migration, poverty, economic inequality, the difficulty to transfer social rights from the US to Colombia. So it was even when I started, I did good research in terms of academic research, talking with other migrants, but starting the story of Mama Icha, which is the plan was to be with her, accompanying her in her dream to return back home. It was all the time having the question, what is going on? What do I need to understand? What is important to tell? What is this meaningful? So it was having all the time these questions and trying to process the story, and it was kind of trying to understand the script in the process of making.
And I just want to add one thing I learned from Mama Icha, and we hope to transport it in the film, and it's this, the strength of rootedness. And I think we live in times where all the time the values are around fluidity and being flexible, and you can be here or there and it doesn't matter. And what I really appreciate about Mama Icha is calling attention on this existential need to feel belongingness to a place. And I mean, this place is material, is real, and it could be, I mean, it does not have to be your home place, but this question about where do I belong to, I think is crucial, not only for migrants, but also for many, many people in our times where everything is kind of, yeah, we are very flexible and we can go here and there. So this is something I really appreciate, and I am very thankful to Mama Icha for this lesson.
Thank you. I want to open it up to anybody who has any last words, anything that you might have missed, or something like a message you wanted to tell, not only the people who will view this panel, but again, filmmakers, people who are just maybe starting out and are looking for any advice. Not today.
Yeah, I will just echo what Oscar was saying about start production. It's something that, as a filmmaker and someone who also taught film, has been teaching film, it's something that I think people sometimes overthink. And I know we all would like to have the perfect conditions to make a film, but at the core of the documentary is, it's documenting that. And if you miss that moment, there's no way to go back. So start filming with what you have available. And for those who are starting out, like you said, Joy, maybe some people who want to start out filming, don't be afraid to ask for help. There's so many people out there that will be available to help. When I did my first documentary, I borrowed a camera, and I told people that I wanted to do this film, and I didn't have money to pay them, but a lot of people agreed to work on that, and it happens more than obviously not everyone it's available to do that, but you need to learn your community. So as a filmmaker, just learn to to ask for help and get involved into that creative community, and sometimes help from people that you'd never expect. So get your foot in the door and start filming. That's my advice.
Thank you.
I also would like to share, because when we show Mama Icha, there is always, or many times, a huge question about Oscar's role, since the tone of the storytelling is really, really intimate. And in this sense, I think that when you engage into someone's story, you are engaging your life with their lives. And this is something human. So it's about filmmaking, but it's about filmmaking and staying human. And this also implies that this relationship might last your whole life. It's not only about the time you are shooting or you are needing something, but it's a real relationship. And this is really beautiful. It's really hard. And if you are starting, if you are thinking of filming someone's story, you have to be aware that this can be a bound for your whole life. And so be aware of it and be true and responsible with it.
Thank you.
I would add that you should try to work on other people's films if you can, if you're just trying to get experience in the beginning. And also a really important question for me and filmmakers, I think, should ask themselves are like, why are you the person to tell this story? What connection do you have to this story? So really think about that. And I think that'll help you decide, does it make sense to make this film right now? Yeah.
Oh, great. Thank you so much for everyone. It was a pleasure to speak with everyone just for a few minutes and to talk briefly about your films and kind of some background. Again, both films were, made from basically women, as the main character with very different backgrounds, but still, that theme of Philadelphia, that thing again of being Latino and the different struggles that Latinos go through, of being in a new city and of being in a new country. Kind of again really hit home. Both of them I was able to take, oh yeah, I've witnessed this. But I think for people who either are not familiar with the different communities, like Gabriela was talking a little bit Philadelphia is the city of neighborhoods, and each neighborhood has its own story, and it's always ever changing as I've seen as a lifelong Philadelphian. But I think your stories and your films have just a glimpse of what each neighborhood and which each family are going through. And I want to thank you, for taking the time and obviously the resources to make both your films. And I hope to look out for other films and work from you all. But thank you again for taking the time. Oscar and Brenda, it was a pleasure. Melissa, it was a pleasure to meet you. Gabriela, it's always a pleasure. Thank you for in the morning taking time to speak with us.
Thank you, girls. I mean, it's been a great encounter. Thank you very much.
And I'm very happy that we shared the film in the Philadelphia Latino Film Festival, because this story takes place in Philly. It's about the Latino community. So we always feel like the festival is like the natural home for our film.
Absolutely. Great to be here. Gracias, chicos. Buena suerte. Thank you, Joy.
Thank you.